Well, hello and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to you ahead of your seminar. I'd like to thank the Australian Social Policy Association and the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet for hosting this seminar. I'd also like to welcome Peter Saunders, President of ASPA, Patricia Faulkner, Chair of the Social Inclusion Board, and participants who have come from all over Australia representing the not-for-profit sector, academia, government and the business sector. Today is a chance to connect those of you working in NGOs, government and social policy research on the issue of social inclusion. It's about connecting research, policy and practice, and about using the evidence base to improve services and achieve the goal of social inclusion for the most disadvantaged in our community. Most Australians are doing well, and unlike the majority of developed nations, we've avoided recession and escalating joblessness resulting from the GFC. Yet Australia still has one of the highest levels of income inequality in the OECD. There are some Australians missing out. Many of them fall between the cracks of services targeted at one particular need, be it mental health, income support, health, housing support or education. The idea of complex and multi-dimensional disadvantage is not exactly new. But where the reality comes into focus, though, is when governments are able to put together a multi-dimensional response. That is the value of social inclusion. We know that around 590,000 children are growing up in homes where neither parent is in work. That is 14% of all children, the fourth highest rate in the OECD. We also know that around 45% of people with a disability are living either near or below the international standard for poverty, double the OECD average. Our rate of youth unemployment is still 11.5%, more than double the average. There are far too many people, about 100,000, whom we know to be deeply excluded. That is, on any given night, they are homeless. This group includes families and a worrying increase in the number of older women. Of those disadvantaged Australians, there are around 650,000 of working age who experience multiple and complex disadvantage, involving a combination of issues affecting their economic, social or personal status and well-being. The people who fall into these groups are more likely to be single or lone parents, to be living in rented accommodation or living in a deprived location or homeless. What we need is to build multi-dimensional policies and services aimed at helping those Australians living with that complex disadvantage. Social inclusion, by its very nature, encourages the development of innovative models as a recognition that traditional approaches to disadvantage simply don't work for a sizable group in our community. We're about developing services which are not simply welfare catering for a single need, but which invest in the broad social well-being, health, education and housing support of the complex disadvantaged. This is why the Social Inclusion Initiative is best placed in the Prime Minister's Department, where it can look across the whole of government and connect the different policy agendas in a way that provides the best outcomes for disadvantaged Australians. A good example of social inclusion initiatives are the co-location of Centrelink and Medicare offices and the creation of the Local Connections to Work program, which is already operating in a number of capital cities. Last year I saw firsthand the work being done by the Local Connections to Work program in Campsie in Sydney. Under one roof, the program hosts 13 community partners, including a combination of employment service providers and welfare organisations, all offering services on a rostered basis. What this means in practice is that disadvantaged job seekers are able to have joint meetings with their Centrelink caseworkers and employment service providers. They're telling their story just once. Their needs are being quickly identified and they're being met with the right support. Social inclusion is about working to provide that broader vision and approach so we can ensure that different agencies and policy areas take a coordinated approach to service provision. Rather than making people fit into existing structures and services, social inclusion aims to change those systems and structures so that they better serve those in need. We'll have 24 local connections to work sites operating by 2015. So far, 1,310 disadvantaged job seekers have found placements after going through these sites. The government's provided safe, affordable and accessible housing to help the deeply excluded by reducing homelessness through the National Partnership Agreement on Homelessness and the MPA on Social Housing. In my own portfolio, there have been significant gains in clinical mental health services over the last decade, but more needs to be done to support people to live well in the community with mental illness. The Partners in Recovery initiative, funded through our record mental health package last year, is another good example of a new approach to providing support for Australians living with the most severe and chronic forms of mental illness. Under this program, a care facilitator takes responsibility for coordinating a person's clinical and non-clinical needs and requires service providers to sign on to a single care plan. The program will provide comfort to families, knowing that there is a single point of contact to call on when a gap or a need emerges. I encourage all of you to think about ways that we can improve on our services so that we can build on our investment in helping all aspects of the lives of the most socially disadvantaged. I wish you well and I wish you luck in your endeavours today. Thank you very much.